Now, the plan would be to stage the Pan Am Games in venues all the way from the St. Catharines area over to Markham, with events happening perhaps in Mississauga, Oakville, Vaughan. Toronto would be a major part of it as well. So, should we go for the bid or not? Or, after all the unsuccessful bids of the past, are you feeling a bit like Charlie Brown, wondering about Lucy holding the ball, waiting for him to kick it? Our question, should the GTA host the Pan American Games in 2015? How does this idea strike you?
It doesn't strike me. I'm not as supportive of pursuing this. I've been involved in the 2 Olympic bids.
Yeah.
And I think there's far better use for the taxpayers' money, which will be at least $2 billion, but I suspect 3, maybe even more with the security costs. And I think there's a better infrastructure to be built. We don't have enough hospitals, we don't have enough schools, we're not dealing with autistic kids getting proper education through the boards of education in the provincial government. If there's any money for infrastructure, that's where I want to put it.
But there isn't very much money for all those things you're talking about.
That's right. So yeah. they're obviously, where are they going to fund this?
Well, where does the money come from in these kinds of things?
It comes from government. It basically comes from
it comes from us at some
taxpayers,
point. Of course.
Whether it's federal taxpayer, the provincial taxpayer, the municipal taxpayer, the taxpayers are going to fund the lion's share of this. First of all, the lead is going to have to come from the provincial government. I don't agree. Yeah. I think you need this unity municipally, but the lead is the provincial government.
If the province said tomorrow, we're interested in doing this, I would think the municipalities might have a slightly different attitude.
Well, they might. But quite frankly, I mean, there's a bit of a hypocrisy for the provincial government. We have a curriculum called physical education, which they don't fund properly. There isn't the funding in our school board to do proper physical education. The facilities are part of it, but the key part is teachers, proper teachers. They have this program against obesity and nutritious food in the schools, and the junk food's not allowed to be sold. Yeah. But in the next breath, they're closing swimming pools. They won't provide funding for swimming pools in schools where they already have them, not new schools, but for the old schools. So, you know, you can't have it that way and not fund it on something as basic as education.
But if you could get the Ontario government involved and I know this may seem like an even bigger pipe dream, the federal government involved in this with, they have deeper pockets certainly than the municipality of Toronto.
But they don't really have those deeper pockets. They're heading right on the edge, going into a recession. They don't have, but if they can't fund the publicly funded educational system properly through their formulas, how can you then justify building stadia and huge tracks and pools and other facilities when you can't even provide the facilities for the citizens of our citizens who are in our school system?
Okay.
And then we have to have a debate about what's the priority for taxpayers' money. You know, if we're going to build infrastructure and we say what's the multiplier effect of that infrastructure, if I put $400 million and build a hospital, it does more. It creates all kinds of jobs to do that. Then I fill it with people who are well educated and they're permanent, full-time, well-paying jobs in the city of Toronto. And they meet a social need where there is a social demand that isn't being met in terms of healthcare, which is fundamental to Canadian society. I say that's a better investment for limited taxpayers' dollars from Ottawa and from Queen's Park and municipally than building sports facilities. I don't disagree with the arguments being made, but I tell you, these things always go into major overruns. They say it's going to cost $2 billion. Chris Rudd has indicated that's a number. I happen to agree that it'll be at least that, if not more, not these low numbers like they lowballed on the Olympics. But I can tell you in Atlanta, which is successful, the dislocation of the most vulnerable people removed from their housing to make way for the Olympic venues.
Well, same thing happened in Montreal.
Well, but that's wrong. By the way, the Olympic bid costs a minimum of $100 million. My assessment, this one is in the tens of millions to do it, just to do the bid properly, because you have to bring them up here. You have to wine and dine. Yeah. It is a mystery how it works. When you don't have enough money, you have to go to your priorities. What are the priorities of municipal government? And quite frankly, I think they all have merit, But if you haven't got enough money, you got to go
But
back
the
to
money
your
for something
priorities.
like these games isn't supposed to come from the municipal government anyway.
Well,
I mean, it would be a great world if that were
that's
true.
why it's who steps up to the plate first, the ones who are going to have to fund it, and that's why Dalton McGuinty will dance around the issue, and that's why Harper will dance around the issue, and McGuinty should be looking over his shoulder. Am I going to have enough money to fund what I've already got now? What am I going to do about uploading services from municipalities back to this?
Which I've promised to do, blah,
which
blah, blah.
I promised to do, you know, promises, and I just don't think he has enough money to spread around.
Okay.
I know he doesn't. Well, I don't want to be that kind of a world city. I want to be a city that works for people who live in this city. That's my #1 priority, that they have decent housing, good education, food on the table, a decent job. Those are important right here in the City of Toronto. Those are my mandate, and I want to and the services that support those, a good public.
That means in your world there would never be money for that, for the kind of thing.
They would be pretty rare, because in the last 15 years there really hasn't been that kind of money for it.
But that's what we have to do. We have to plan for those things. We have to encourage the governments and the corporations and all the people to support and build towards that.
Well,
we're never going to advance if we don't.
I've heard this argument about corporations. Corporations, they never, quite frankly, they won't invest in anything unless there's something they get in return. Sure, you'll take the sponsorships and all that, but you know, in the multi-billion-dollar exercise, how much do the corporations put in? There isn't altruism, it's business, quite frankly. And let's get past that squeeze the heart and I want to feel good and love and pixie dust. You've got to be practical. We have some major challenges in this city. We have some major challenges in this province in structural and financial problems. And we have to get back to what are our missions? What are our first missions to the citizens that we represent?
Let me
and
hear
I think
from
there
some
are
more
other
callers.
priorities.
All right.
It's nice to have this GTIA application, but how are you going to get from one venue to the other? How are the spectators going to be able to do that with the gridlock we have, because we haven't invested in infrastructure?
Yeah, but then you could say that of so many cities in the world who have exactly the same problem.
No, but,
even worse than we have in Toronto.
But that's true. But I don't think that's been. How is it going to work? Is it what costs? What are we going to have to invest? That raises the cost for security, and you know, the security for the Beijing. They're talking $500 million minimum just for the security costs in Beijing. Well, there's going to be security costs to this, and the security increases when you have, you know, dozens of different venues. I mean, it sounds good. I just don't think the application has been, well, it hasn't been an application yet.
Well, it isn't yet.
That's right.
It's just a spark in a few people's.
But you know, I want to deal with families whose kids have autism, and I want to make sure that they have publicly funded education for their kids. It's being denied by this government because they say it's too expensive.
Yeah, but now you're running a guilt trip on the people who want the Olympics, Pan Am Games. You're saying, oh, no, we got to fix every single problem that we have in the City of Toronto before we even think about it.
Publicly funded education, publicly funded health care are critical. Quite frankly, in the United States of America, 50 million people have no health care. Is that a great government? No. What's different between us and them? We have a universal health care system with some flaws and weaknesses, but that's fundamental. That's what makes this country so much more humane and progressive than that American government to the south. Our education system is becoming exorbitantly expensive for post-secondary education. We do have to address those things. I think they are the priorities for government, period. And we aren't doing a good enough job.
But at the end of the day, you wind up with a kind of dreary feeling in the back of your head, don't you?
No fun.
I
do. Hearing you talk,
citizens until every social woe has been cured.
But the point is you can have a lot of fun in sports. I played in sports at university with baling wire just about, and you know, I had a great time and a lot of pride, and there was a lot of competition.
Well, surely the City of Toronto can find you some baling wire if we, you know, if you want to go back and do some practice. I may come and practice with you.
Excuse me, but I know I'm old. I'm not doing those kinds of sports anymore.
Okay.
My jaw is strong though.
But I mean, the fact is, it's 2015 when this is going to happen.
Yes, it is.
So maybe we could save up for it and have some good planning for a change instead of some questionable planning at all 3 levels of government.